When Asuma returns to Shibuya's Mage High School, everyone expects the same bullied loser. Then Tenuji Kiryu and his gang rush him, and Asuma snaps. He drops the thugs with simple moves, and when Kiryu fires a banned Hellfire Cannon, the whole class screams. But Asuma doesn't even flinch. With one spell, Particle Veil, he tears the attack apart like it's nothing. Seconds later, Kiryu and his crew lie unconscious on the floor. They never stood a chance. Asuma is a legendary Archmage reborn 3,000 years later in a student's body. In the magical kingdom of Grangaya, a legendary Grand Archmage rose to fame as the hero who led humanity to victory in a brutal otherworldly war. His unmatched mastery of magic and leadership saved countless lives and restored peace across the land, earning him respect, admiration, and eternal gratitude, or so he believed. During a grand celebration held in his honor, the king suddenly announced a shocking decree. The very hero who saved the world was to be banished. Although the king acknowledged his achievements, he claimed that the Archmage's overwhelming power was far too frightening to keep around now that peace had been restored. To make matters worse, the wine he drank was secretly laced with a sealing agent, and his 4 hand-picked elemental subordinates turned against him based on false accusations of treason. Moments before death, he cast a secret reincarnation spell and awakens 3,000 years later in a modern hospital. When he gets up on his feet, he realizes that he has woken up in the body of a high school student, Shiobana Asuma, and this comes as a shock since the dude has the same name as him. The alarms went off, and the medical staff rushed over, and to their surprise, Asuma was standing like nothing had happened to him. They consider this a miracle, since he is supposed to be in a vegetative state with no hope. The doctor rushes over to tap him on the shoulder, but Asuma is lost in thought. He realizes that the reincarnation spell must have worked, since he is alive and well. In addition, it is surprising that he can understand the language being spoken by the medical staff. Since the first thing on his mind is to figure out the world's civilization, he asks the staff where the biggest library is located. The staff hesitate to tell him, and he uses mind control on one of the nurses to get her to give him directions. Asuma sees a bag in the distance and he asks them if it is his. The nurse under his influence says yes, leaving the doctor confused as to why the lady is willingly telling him everything he wants to know. Asuma then grabs his bag and leaves the hospital without looking back. He is at the station when he notices the smartphone in his bag, and since he is not familiar with it, he asks the lady beside him. He calls it a metal plate, and the girl lets him know that it is a smartphone. Asuma then uses his appraisal power on the smartphone, and his analysis tells him that it is a magic device that can access basically everything he wants, including the library he is searching for. Not long after this, he gets on a train, and after several analyses, he realizes that he didn't even need to visit the library, since he was able to gain the basic knowledge about the world thanks to the smartphone. Asuma has also figured out that with the magic device, anyone can communicate with people far away and instantly look up or gather any kind of information. He has been able to put together that 3,000 years have passed since he died, and magic technology has regressed. It has been replaced by science, and even though it appears to be convenient, Asuma thinks it's nothing special because it is just cheap tricks. He can see that he is now in the peaceful world that he risked and even sacrificed his life to protect. Not long after this, he arrives at the house of the previous owner of the body, and he realizes that he has lost his entire family. Sitting on the table is a diary, and when he picks it up to read, he realizes that the dude wanted to die because he was being bullied by his classmates, and even the teacher. Asuma realizes how worse it is when he opens the smartphone to see that the dude was always receiving trash messages. The bulk of these messages is coming from the group chat of the Shibuya Ward Mage Training High School, where the dude attends. The next day, Asuma shows up at the school, shocking those who know him. They walk over to him, asking him if he is fine, and this shocks Asuma, who asks them if he is not supposed to be in the school. One of the students then reveals that the report is that he tried to off himself because he couldn't handle the constant bullying. Asuma showing up casually raises his questions among the students, and he is still trying to understand what is happening when a red-headed dude, Tenuji Kiryu, and his gang show up. The moment he sees Kiryu, Asuma figures out that he is the descendant of one of his subordinates from 3,000 years ago. Kiryu walks up to Asuma, telling him that he already warned him not to come to the academy. Kiryu makes fun of Asuma, asking him if his magic almost killed him and caused him to lose his memory. Kiryu laughs hysterically at Asuma, calling him a loser. Kiryu's subordinates suggest that they toy with him just as they usually do. It then dawns on Asuma that Kiryu was the one who treated the other Asuma like trash. This pisses Asuma off and he decides to test how much mana the body has. He activates his magic and punches Kiryu in the face without fear. The spectators are shocked to see Asuma attacking Kiryu. Kiryu's subordinates angrily charge toward Asuma, but Asuma is not worried, since the mana in his body is a good match for him. Asuma easily dodges the attackers and takes them down with simple combat skills. He then decides to try out the mana output, and he unleashes a powerful magical wave that sends them crashing to the ground. Kiryu is pissed with the embarrassment he is currently suffering from Asuma and angrily unleashes a Hellfire Cannon. The students are shocked when they see this, since it is a powerful spell that is banned on the school grounds. The students scream at Asuma, telling him to dodge the attack or else he will die. Surprisingly, Asuma doesn't move an inch, and he activates a particle veil that annihilates magic. Asuma's spell breaks apart the fire cannon, and Asuma is relieved that his signature spell still works. Kiryu is stunned when his flames disappear before getting to Asuma. Even the students who are watching are confused because this is something they have never seen before. Asuma decides to take things seriously, and he dashes Kiryu, leaving the dude petrified because he wasn't expecting trash like Asuma to put up such a fight. Kiryu considers him and his subordinates elites, and Asuma is not supposed to even be able to touch a hair on them. Enraged, Kiryu unleashes a powerful magic that engulfs his body in flames. Asuma recognizes the magic from the ancient era and realizes that he has awakened his potential because he is pissed. With his entire body going up in flames, he goes after Asuma, but before he makes his move, Asuma meets him halfway with a punch to the tummy. This sends a wave of pain through his body, and Asuma caps it off with a painful flick to the head, which sends him flying. By the time everything settles down, Kiryu and his guys are all lying on the ground, writhing in pain. The other students are stunned and horrified at the same time. Asuma, on the other hand, is analyzing the structure of his body, and he realizes that the latent mana is amazing, but it lacks the stamina to keep up. Later on, Asuma sits in class alongside the other students, and he promises himself that he is not going to allow a repeat of what happened in the past. In addition, he has no intention of forgiving the descendants of those who betrayed him. Just then, he spots a weird device on the table, and he asks the girl beside him what it is. The girl, Shinomiya Lily, reveals that it is a device that lets one activate modern magic at high speed, and it is called a smart rod. Asuma then realizes that modern magic is basically a blend of science and magic. Basically, the spells from 3,000 years ago are now called ancient magic, and those who practice are extinct. Because of the advancement in science, modern magic became the standard. Modern magic is basically built on theories, which sounds strange to Asuma, but makes it intriguing. Suddenly it dawns on Asuma that he can actually create his own original hybrid magic by combining modern magic with ancient magic, and the thought of this excites him. After the teacher is done with his lectures, Asuma asks Lily if the classes for the day are over, but she tells him that there is a monthly aptitude test slated for the day. Because of this, they are all heading to the schoolyard. Moments later, they arrive at the schoolyard and they are welcomed by their teacher, George Todu. He lets them know that the day's test is going to be the most important one yet because it is going to decide their attribute as a mage. He urges them to take the test pretty seriously. Since Asuma still has a lot to learn, he asks Lily to explain the attribute colors to him. Lily reveals that fire mages are red, while water mages are blue, and dark mages are black. Apparently, mana is channeled through the body's mana circuits to cast spells, but the circuits have limited capacity, so most people stick to one element. This is the choice that determines one's specialization. Not long after, George calls Asuma to the stage. With a disgusted face, he asks him what element he is going to be picking. With a confident face, Asuma tells George that he has no interest in picking any of the elements because he is cool with being a no element. George thinks Asuma is joking around, but Asuma makes it pretty clear that he has no intention of choosing just one element. This pisses George off because he believes that Asuma is mocking him. The other students are surprised because Asuma is choosing to be a NEET. They can't believe that he is intentionally choosing a disadvantageous element. This is Asuma's first time being called a NEET, and he figures out that it is what they call a colorless mage in the modern era. However, he is not worried because they are all getting it wrong. Taking a biased growth path is basically stupid because staying colorless is the only way to fully use one's mana to the fullest. George starts complaining, asking why someone as trashy as Asuma is even enrolled in the academy. George threatens to beat Asuma up just as he regularly does. Asuma then figures out that George is the teacher who is always picking on the former Asuma. George tells Asuma that there is zero potential for colorless mages, but Asuma disagrees, saying NEETs are the strongest. Since George doesn't want to believe it, Asuma suggests that they test the theory with a mock battle. Asuma is prepared to show George that NEETs are the strongest, but this pisses the teacher off. He cannot believe that Asuma is seriously challenging him to a fight, and because of this, he informs the students that there has been a change in plans. He lets them know that the aptitude test for the day will include a mock battle with no restrictions. Lily freaks out when she hears that George is not adding any restrictions to the duel, since George is the strongest in the entire faculty. Before the fight starts, George tells Asuma not to blame him for whatever happens during their fight. Asuma casually tells George that he should be worried about himself instead. The match begins, and George unleashes two smart rods, claiming that he is the only one in the academy who can handle multiple elements. He combines 2 strikes, the modern magic brace bomb and thunder lance. Everyone believes Asuma is done for, as the attacks move directly toward him, but to their greatest surprise, he casually blocks the attack with a barrier spell. George watches in horror because what is happening right in front of him is nothing short of impossible. George hurls another wave of attack at Asuma, but he still blocks it effortlessly. This shocks George and even the students who are watching. George continues throwing all the attacks that he can, but Asuma slowly walks up to him while parrying all of his attacks. George starts to panic, and he screams at Asuma, telling him not to come any closer. Asuma confidently walks up to him, and he crushes his smart rod before placing his hand on his shoulder and unleashing a painful attack on him. Asuma tells George to confess everything he did to everyone, or else he is going to turn him into dust. Realizing that Asuma is not bluffing with his threat, George starts to confess. He reveals that he always looked the other way when Kiryu and his gang were bullying Asuma. Even when Asuma confided in him, he still beat him up for it. The students are horrified and disappointed when they hear this, and they quickly rush over to get the headmaster. George crashes to his knees, and Asuma looks down on him while asking him how he feels about losing to a colorless mage. Because of the fight against George, Asuma becomes a scary force in class because he now looks like a completely different person. After the class for the day, Asuma turns to Lily again to talk to her, shocking the girl. Asuma thanks Lily for her help earlier on, and Lily's face turns red from extreme blushing. Asuma makes it even worse for Lily by going close to her and asking her if she is willing to go out with him. Lily's entire world goes into shock when she hears this. With her face totally red, she subtly agrees to go out with him. However, reality soon dawns on her when she realizes that Asuma means something else. He only wants her to show him around the school and the important places that he needs to know. After showing him around, Asuma thanks her for her help, and she feels like a total idiot for getting her hopes up. She fails to bottle in her emotions, and she starts to rage until Asuma asks her what the problem is. She quickly replies that nothing is wrong, and to cover up for her emotional mistake, she takes Asuma to the best building in the school, the magic analysis room. Lily lets him know that students can use the room as long as they apply for it. Asuma then tells Lily that she can now end the tour because he understands everything clearly. He thanks her for the help and assures her that he is going to repay her for the help one day. Lily is blown away by all of these, forcing her to ask if the dude is really Asuma. She confesses that Asuma has been a totally different person since the day started. Asuma admits that he might appear different, since he just woke up the day before, and his memories are a bit jumbled. He then apologizes for making her worry. But deep down, Asuma is impressed that Lily is able to figure out that something feels off. Once this is settled, Lily leaves and Asuma stays behind in the analysis room. Asuma places his hand on the computer and asks it to analyze the ancient and modern magic. Asuma is confident that with the computer he can develop a new and original hybrid magic. Asuma smiles as he can't wait to use it the next day. Suddenly a dude appears beside him, asking him if he is Asuma. This comes as a shock to Asuma because he didn't even sense the dude's presence. The dude introduces himself as Izuya Katakura, and he is one of the S4. Asuma is confused about what the S4 means, and Izuya reveals that it means the strong four. Basically, those in the group are considered the strongest in the academy, and Izuya is one of them. Izuya tells Asuma that he heard about how he took down Kiryu, who is also a member of the group. What surprises Izuya is the fact that he is a colorless mage. However, Izuya confesses that he is not pissed that Asuma beat Kiryu up because he is not a fan of the things he does. Because of this, Izuya tells Asuma that he would like them to be friends. He stretches his hand to Asuma with a big smile on his face, and Asuma takes a moment before shaking him and accepting the deal. In the process of shaking each other, Asuma realizes that Izuya has cast some sort of weak spell on him, and he assumes that it is a tracking spell. Instead of getting pissed by this, he is impressed because Izuya is able to cast modern magic naturally without using a smart rod. In addition, he can clearly see that he is a descendant of his past comrade, the Mage of Wind. After they are done exchanging handshakes, Izuya turns around to leave, and Asuma smiles brightly because he is basically accepting Izuya's challenge. The next day, Asuma heads to the faculty room to make reservations for the analysis room, and he is given 1 hour, which is 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. During the lecture that day, Asuma fails to concentrate, as he can't wait to visit the magic analysis room. After school, he heads straight for the room. Asuma focuses on the ancient magic, the Grand Panel, which is a form of ancient magic that he used back in the day. It is a procedure where mana is taken from the atmosphere and then condensed in the mana frame within the body. Once the magic that the mage wants to activate has been determined, the mana is transferred from the mana frame to the execution frame, and the magic circle finally formats the unstable process into a fixed pattern. Basically, the precision and beauty of a magic circle are proportional to the skill of the mage. The mana flows through the magic circle designed by the caster, and when it is released from there, the magic activates. Ancient magic, on the other hand, can only be used by those who are chosen. This is basically because mana cannot be refined in the body without magical talent. However, things appear to be different in the modern era because the internal mana frame and execution frame have been replaced by an organ called the mana circuit, thanks to the invention of the smart rod. The smart rod automatically injects mana into the body's mana circuit and artificially generates a magic circle to activate the spell. To put it simply, they were able to create a more generalized process, making it possible to activate magic without any innate personal differences. However, due to the manualization of the procedure, the power of the magic has decreased when compared to ancient magic. And just as expected, without the smart rod, there is no way to use magic. With all of these, Asuma figures out that creating the hybrid magic that mixes ancient and modern technology is the ultimate goal. However, to do this, he knows that he has to master modern magic to the highest level so he can conquer all the attributes. He plans to use the quantum computer to run the calculations for the basic theory of his hypothetical hybrid magic. Asuma inputs his data, and once he is done, he decides to get himself a drink and wait until the calculation results are out. Suddenly, he gets thrown into a magical space where he finds himself falling. He quickly figures out that he is currently under attack by someone who wields modern magic, but the problem is that he can't see the person. Just then, it dawns on him that there is only one person who has slipped past his radar, and this is Izuya. Asuma cannot believe that the dude is already making his move when he suggests that they become friends. Since Izuya doesn't mind attacking him, Asuma plans to teach him what it means to be his senior. Since there is no way Izuya could have teleported him to the sky, Asuma figures out that it is a recognition-altering spell to make him perceive it that way. This is the same type of magic that Izuya used in the past, and Asuma is surprised that he hasn't changed. Nonetheless, Asuma is curious to see what will happen if he continues free-falling. Just then, a bunch of artificial magical beasts appear out of nowhere. Asuma is forced to cast a barrier spell, and he figures out that he is going to be stuck on the defensive if he can't pinpoint where Izuya is hiding. Asuma plans out his move and decides to use deceleration magic to stop his fall. But suddenly he realizes that he is falling into a magic mine. This is when he realizes that Izuya has already placed countermeasures in the magical space, which will always react to the spell he activates. Asuma comes to the quick conclusion that he needs to destroy the mines before they explode, causing a chain explosion. Asuma believes he has everything under control until he suddenly finds himself levitating in an empty space with no atmosphere, making it hard for him to breathe. He is still dealing with this when a bunch of explosions rock the space, and this is when Asuma finally decides that he's had enough. Asuma soon realizes that he is at risk of suffocation and dying if he doesn't make a move quickly. To cap it off, the magical space is intricate in its construction, just like a work of art. Since he knows how Izuya operates, he is pretty sure that he is hiding somewhere and watching, so he can witness his death. This means the whole space is not autonomous, so Izuya is definitely nearby and watching through a peephole. Asuma concludes that his way out is to find the peephole, and he surrenders himself to a 100% focus mode. Izuya sees this and believes that Asuma is finally giving up, but at the same time, he is not ready to pull back. Suddenly, a large explosion rocks the space, and this is thanks to Asuma channeling all of his concentrated mana into his execution frame and unleashing it at once. Izuya is shocked when he sees this, but Asuma doesn't hold back as he continues to expand his massive magic circle. He plans to expose the anomaly within the space and pinpoint Izuya's observation point by doing this. After some moments of doing this, he finally locates Izuya, and he wastes no time exploiting the space. He breaks apart Izuya's magic and he finds himself in the magic room again. With this, he confirms that Izuya was using a recognition-altering magic. Asuma then leaves the room to find Izuya where he is sitting. Asuma walks up to him, asking him why he would want to harm him when he told him earlier that he would like them to get along. Izuya jumps up excitedly, telling Asuma that he is everything he imagined him to be. Izuya talks about how easy it was for Asuma to break through the illusion magic and cast levitation magic without a chant. Izuya tells Asuma that he is an incredible person for being able to do this. Izuya continues dancing around as he compares Asuma's technique to the best art in the world. He tells Asuma that he is incredible, and he would like to understand his magic circuits. Suddenly, Izuya's face changes as he tells Asuma that what he loves most is seeing something beautiful get destroyed. Before Asuma can react, he realizes that Izuya has gotten a step ahead of him again and he has fallen into another spell of his. Izuya then activates his magic spell, Meteor Fall, and a bunch of construction materials from below levitate into the air to start falling on Asuma in an attempt to impale him. Even with a number of sharp materials coming at him, Asuma maintains his cool. Just before the spikes descend on him, he manages to create a barrier to block them. However, Izuya makes fun of him, telling him that he wants to see how long he is going to hold out. Izuya continues hurling several materials at Asuma, forcing him to keep evading, and without a doubt, he realizes that Izuya is trying to corner him. Before Asuma knows it, he finds himself in the middle of construction materials that are aimed to finish him off. Asuma continues holding on, but Izuya makes fun of him, telling him that he is reaching his limit already. Izuya then takes things further by pulling an airplane toward Asuma's location. Izuya aura farms in the air while telling Izuya that he is in his world. Izuya tells Asuma that he is curious to see how he is going to block his latest attack. Asuma raises his hand in the air, but at the same time he focuses his attention on his surroundings. Meanwhile, Izuya is planning to stick him with a needle, but just as he hurls the needle at Asuma, he cancels the spell that was protecting the plane. This shocks Izuya, and he watches as the plane comes crashing down. However, it turns out to be an illusion, and his main attack was the needle. Asuma was able to see through this, and he caught the needle pretty easily. Asuma makes fun of him, telling him that he has seen through his schemes already. Asuma explains that the spell that manipulates wind to drop the debris was nothing but a decoy. Izuya had dropped real objects like poles and metal plates, but then he followed it with an illusory airplane to draw his attention. While Asuma was distracted, he then launched the magic needle infused with a consciousness-disrupting spell, which was Izuya's real move. Asuma smiles because even Izuya's supposed meteor fall was nothing but a bluff. Asuma commends Izuya's hard work, but lets him know that everything he tries to do is useless against him. Izuya argues the possibility of this, saying there is no way Asuma could have seen through his magic because no mage alive can sense when he activates his magic. Izuya says this is only possible if the person is a legendary Archmage from 3,000 years ago. Just then, Asuma tells him that because his magic was excellent, he is going to end the battle with subtlety. He dashes toward Izuya at a speed he couldn't react to, and he tells him that he used too much magic in front of him, which gave him the chance to analyze it. Asuma places his hand on Izuya's chest and unleashes a magic circle that sends a vibration of pain through his body. The magic effect kicks in, and Izuya screams in pain before passing out cold. Asuma stands tall above him with a smile on his face because he won the battle. While Izuya was out cold, he found himself dreaming about his ancestor from 3,000 years ago. He was pretty close to Asuma back then, and he considers Asuma to be a work of art. Even though he was close to Asuma, Izuya wasn't close to the rest of the team, as he always avoided them. Kiryu believes that Izuya is shy, but their other teammate says Izuya probably doesn't just like him. Apparently, Izuya doesn't get along with the others because they don't appreciate art, and Izuya is not one to mess around with people like them. Just when things were getting very good between him and Asuma, he is suddenly informed by one of his teammates that the king has given a royal decree concerning the fact that Asuma is a traitor. Izuya doesn't want to believe this because he doesn't think there is a possibility of Asuma betraying them. His teammate tells him that this is true, since the king has the power of foresight, and it has never been wrong. This breaks Izuya's heart, since he considers Asuma to be a work of art, and he wonders why he would risk everything to betray the kingdom. Izuya is questioning this when he wakes up in the infirmary. Since Izuya didn't experience the events directly, he believes that what he just witnessed is a terrible dream. Izuya is trying to get himself together when Asuma shows up, offering him water to drink. He tells him that it's an electrolyte drink with sugar in it. Asuma suggests that Izuya rehydrates as fast as he can because he has lost a lot of fluid from sweating. Izuya is shocked, and he asks Asuma why he is helping him. Asuma mentions that Izuya took his spell head-on, and there was no way he would have come out unscathed. Nonetheless, he lets him know that his magic circuits are still stable, and it doesn't seem to have caused any lasting harm. Just then, Izuya notices a towel in Asuma's hand, and this is when it dawns on him that Asuma has been taking care of him while he was out. With a bright smile on his face, Asuma tells Izuya that he did it because he doesn't want to lose a talented mage. With a subtle voice, Izuya thanks Asuma for his help, and he lets him know that not everyone in S4 is like Kiryu. Izuya admits that Kiryu's magic power is extraordinary, but at the same time, he doesn't agree with his ideas. Izuya then reveals that he wanted to see just how strong Asuma is for him to have been able to defeat Kiryu. Izuya then bows his head to Asuma to apologize on Kiryu's behalf because of everything that he has done to him. Asuma smiles, and he tells Izuya that he doesn't seem like a bad person. He then tells Izuya that he is just going to forget that he ambushed him. However, in exchange for this, he wants them to make a deal. Izuya asks him what the deal is, and Asuma tells Izuya that he wants him to quit S4 and join him to create a new faction at the academy. Asuma is ready to take this risk of recruiting him, since he doesn't have his memories from 3,000 years ago. Asuma has already figured out that he is going to need allies if he's going to achieve anything in this current era. Asuma lets Izuya know that he is counting on him to walk with him toward the future that he is aiming for. Izuya is completely blown away and honored by the offer. He wastes no time getting off the bed, and he kneels in front of Asuma, telling him that he is ready to follow his lead. Asuma is surprised by Izuya's conduct because he clearly remembers the Izuya from 3,000 years ago doing the same thing. Just then, Asuma lets the nurse know that he can see her peeking from behind the door. The lady quickly steps out saying she didn't mean to. Since he is done with Izuya, Asuma prepares to leave. Before leaving, he gives the nurse a chart that analyzes Izuya's magic circuit. Asuma tells her that she can use this as a reference, and the moment she stares into the chart, she almost loses her mind. She can't believe just how insanely detailed the chart is. She screams at Asuma to stop, and she asks him if he will be willing to join his research institute as a special student. Asuma turns around, smiles at her, and rejects the offer, telling her that he is fond of the academy already. After leaving, Asuma heads to the magic analysis room because he got sidetracked a bit, and he needs to continue with his research. After the computer is done analyzing everything he suggested, the computer comes up with a conclusion that his theory is recommended for presentation at academic conferences as a new magic system. Asuma is pleased that his hunch was right, and he heaves a sigh of relief because this lays a foundation for the hybrid magic that mixes ancient and modern methods. Asuma figures out that the next thing he will do is to tweak each magic formula to fit specific uses. After this, he will adapt them to magic circuits, and he also needs to verify their compatibility with elements. Because he has a lot to do, Asuma realizes that the magic analysis room might as well become his second home. Asuma plans to outdo all the ancient magic that he has learned and then create a revolutionary magic. The following day in class, the teacher decides to call on Asuma because there have been suspicions that he is cheating since his grade suddenly went up. The teacher tells him to come forward to solve the question that is on the board. The teacher gaslights Asuma into stepping up, and Asuma confidently walks up to prove them wrong that NEETs are not trash. Asuma picks up the chalk and he starts solving the equation down to the last-minute detail, shocking the teacher and even the students. Asuma even explains how the equation came to be and what it is used for. Apparently, it was the same equation that led to the invention of smart rods, and when the teacher hears this, he is completely overwhelmed. He has no choice but to tell Asuma that he is right, and he tells him to go back to his seat. The teacher is left in a daze because Asuma just solved a problem that is meant for those in the university. As he returns to his seat, Lily cannot keep her eyes off the cool and chill dude. During lunch, the majority of the class walks up to Lily, begging her to talk to Asuma so that he can be friends with them. Realizing that they won't let her breathe unless she does so, Lily finally agrees to talk to Asuma. Lily then asks Asuma if he will be free after school so that they can go to the cafe in Ebisu with the rest of the class. Asuma initially refuses the offer, but the moment he realizes that Lily will be put to shame, he changes his mind. The whole class erupts in joy when he says this, and they admit that it is the best day of their lives. Meanwhile, there is a weird girl watching Asuma, and she is aiming to trash Asuma's gorgeous face. Moments later, Asuma and his classmates arrive at the cafe, but Asuma couldn't even get a moment of rest as the students are interested in everything that concerns him. Lily soon gets tired of their incessant questions, and she screams at them, telling them to ask one at a time. Asuma then starts answering all of their questions, like what his favorite food is, and the perks of being a NEET. Even when he is about to miss a question, the student quickly reminds him. Asuma reveals that the person he is closest to is Lily, and the moment he says this, he sends Lily almost fainting, but she tries to keep her cool so things don't end up like before. However, she takes out her emotions on the cup that she is holding, squeezing it so hard that she spills all the contents of the cup. Asuma still finds a way to leave her flustered by comforting her because of the spilled drink. Lily then tells Asuma that the students are curious about him, since none of them offer any elite courses. Apparently, their full meaning for NEET is not in education, employment, or training. However, they are all convinced that this is not the situation in Asuma's case. In fact, they believe it is more like neat, skillful, clever, and amazing. Asuma smiles when he hears this, and he tells the students that they might be right. Lily cannot believe that Asuma is actually cool with everything they have been saying so far. As they leave the cafe, they make sure to exchange contact information with Asuma, and this provides another round of excitement for them. Meanwhile, there is someone spying on Asuma and sending his live locations to their boss. Asuma soon notices the presence of this person, and he tells Lily to be cautious. Suddenly, a bunch of elite students pop up in front of them. Asuma demands to know why they are there, but they remain silent until a car pulls up in front of them. The students then create a passageway for whoever is inside the car. When the car door opens, Asuma's classmates panic because the dude stepping out of the car is one of the S4. The dude walks up to Asuma and introduces himself as Fukada Shion, the head of the Academy's club union. Without a doubt, Asuma can see that Shion is the same Shion from 3,000 years ago. Shion then tells Asuma that he heard about how he helped Izuya out, and since the group can't keep owing favors, he decides to challenge Asuma to a magic duel. Lily is shocked when she hears this, and Asuma turns around to ask her if she knows what a magic duel is. Lily is horrified when she realizes that Asuma doesn't know Jack, and she whispers in his ear telling him what a magic duel is. When Asuma takes too long to give his answer, Shion unleashes his scary battle aura to intimidate Asuma. Asuma analyzes the aura and realizes that it is a fighting spirit, which is aimed at him and the rest of his classmates. Asuma realizes that Shion is willing to take hostages as long as he gets him to accept the duel. Since this provides a field of entertainment for Asuma too, he decides to accept the duel. The moment he agrees to the duel, Shion sheathes his sword and he tells Asuma that the duel will take place the next morning at the Academy's central arena. Asuma smiles because he is not worried a bit, and he is prepared to show Shion why he is much better than him. Later on, Asuma finds himself in a lucid dream, and from inside the dream, he is able to dive into his subconscious and hidden thoughts. Asuma considers a big opportunity to dig into the original owner of the body. He remembers that when he reincarnated, there was a small amount of unused mana that remained inside his body's magic circuits. Since he hasn't touched it, he believes that he can read the original owner's thoughts if he looks through it. He also believes that there is going to be a remnant of past Asuma inside his thoughts. To do this, he figures out that he needs to use magic to extract his spirit, but he remembers that there is no ancient magic for this. Being the genius that he is, he decides to make one for it. He jumps on the idea and he starts putting together everything that should make it work, and he does this. He smiles because he is literally creating new magic inside a mental space. Asuma is confident that he is going to be the only one who will do this in history. Just as expected, Asuma is able to pull it off and draws out the body's thoughts. The young Asuma freaks out when he sees a carbon copy of himself standing in front of him, and he demands to know where he is. However, his head starts banging and he crashes to his knees in pain. Asuma figures out that the memory synchronization between the young Asuma and the body has started. All the memories start flooding in, and Asuma realizes that he tried to off himself in his room, which is why he ends up losing consciousness. After this, he landed in the hospital and fell into a coma from which he was not supposed to wake up. He asks Asuma if everything he just saw is correct, and Asuma says yes. He lets him know that he is currently borrowing his body, and he apologizes for this. However, the young dude doesn't mind, since he would have remained in a coma if not for him. The young Asuma then asks Asuma why someone from 3,000 years ago reincarnated into his body. Asuma took his time to explain, and when he did, young Asuma almost lost his mind. Asuma also added the story of how Kiryu and the teacher were bullying him. However, Asuma has defeated them already and has taken down other strong opponents too. Asuma reveals that he is doing all of these to protect their body. Young Asuma freaks out when he realizes that he would have become a mini celebrity at the school. However, he doesn't think this is a problem for him anymore, since he is dead already. Young Asuma then reveals that he finally remembers how it all happened. When he was in a coma, a meteor shower passed close by, and the meteors were being sucked into a massive black hole. However, inside the black hole is a speck of light that caught his eye. He narrates that the light was flickering as if it was struggling, and he decided to take the place of the light. Young Asuma dived in, and he kept falling. He realized that he was someone who wanted to die, but lived, while old Asuma was someone who wanted to live, but ended up dying. Young Asuma smiles, saying it probably happened the way it was supposed to. However, old Asuma disagrees, saying they are two souls sharing a body, and neither of them can exist as Asuma on their own. With confidence, Asuma tells young Asuma that they are currently in their story, and he promises to make his dream come true. Young Asuma smiles, and tears drop from his eyes when he hears this. He and old Asuma share a handshake, and he thanks him for the help. Young Asuma tells old Asuma that he is satisfied with the fact that he is trying to help him fulfill his wish. Young Asuma then asks old Asuma if there is anything he can do to help, and old Asuma tells young Asuma about his experience at the cafe. He tells young Asuma that Lily was yelling some sort of weird incantation, like all you, changed to white mocha. This has left old Asuma confused, and he asks young Asuma if he can translate this for him. Young Asuma laughs when he hears this, and he tells old Asuma that he doesn't mind helping, but just then his body starts to fade, telling them that their time is up. Young Asuma then thanks old Asuma for bringing him back. Before disappearing, he tells old Asuma that he is going to continue taking a peek at their story. When Asuma wakes up, he knows that young Asuma is nothing but a lingering thought, but at the same time, he wants to fulfill all of his wishes. Meanwhile, at Shion's residence, he is seen sitting in front of a giant crystal, known as Wurtzite nitride orichalcum, which is mined only in the mountains owned by the Fukada family for generations. It is basically the hardest metal on the planet, and after Shion is done meditating, he slices the metal into shreds with his sword. Just then, the weird girl, who was stalking Asuma earlier, shows up at Shion's training ground. It turns out that she is also one of the S4, and she is Mizuhara Miyune. Miyune is impressed at just how effective Shion's sword is because it is able to cut through the material like it is nothing. Shion then tells Myun that he has already watched the video she sent to him, and he is surprised that Izuya and Kiryu lost the way they did. Shion mentions that he might be in the S4 just for the sake of it, but at the same time he held Izuya and Kiryu in high regard. He considers them the embodiments of the Academy's prestige, and because of this, he has no intention of showing mercy to whoever threatens the Academy's prestige. Muni agrees with him, telling him that if he underestimates Asuma because he is a NEET, he is only going to regret it, just like Izuya and Kiryu did. Shion then whips out his sword and he swears by the moon in the sky that he is going to defeat Asuma. He says he doesn't care if anything happens to Asuma because the Academy's authority is far greater than a human life. Myun is happy to hear this and she urges Shion to smash Asuma's pretty face. Myun then asks him if he has intentions of bringing out his secret weapon during the fight, but Shion says no, believing that the fight is not going to warrant him doing that. He believes that his familiarity is enough for the battle, and just like that, the day for the duel arrives, and Asuma is excited about the whole thing. Talking about the magic duel, it is a sanctioned battle between students, which is based on the use of magic. Apparently, the students in the institution are ranked based on the outcome of a magic duel, and just as usual, the rankings go from FS. High-ranking students are granted various privileges within the academy, which makes it sweeter. While in the arena's waiting room, this is everything that Asuma learned from Lily. Lily believes that Asuma must have heard of it before, since it is common knowledge to everyone who is a student. However, Asuma lets her know that it is his first time hearing of it, and he thanks her for telling him. Lily is surprised to hear this, and she assumes that Asuma is still suffering from the entire memory confusion thing. Because of this, she makes it her will to support him. Suddenly, it dawns on her that she is actually in Asuma's waiting room, and she starts fantasizing just as she always does. It takes Asuma's voice calling out to her to get her out of the fantasy zone that she found herself in. Asuma then shows her two ties, black and white, asking her which one looks better. Lily picks the black one, and Asuma thanks her for her help. Asuma then asks Lily if he's going to get more time in the magic analysis room if he manages to increase his rank, and Lily says yes. Lily cannot believe that the magic analysis room is Asuma's concern out of all of his worries. Asuma then tells Lily that Shion is calling him a troublemaker for the school, and Lily confirms this by showing him the news article detailing his fight with Shion. Shion had told the press of his desire to deliver retribution to Asuma, who is currently destroying the academy. Even when Asuma sees the article, he is not moved by it, and this shocks Lily. She cannot believe the nerve of Asuma, since Shion is a master of Japanese magic swordsmanship, and the heir to the rare metal mines that supply the smart rods. Basically, his donations to the academy are in the billions, which is why no one in the academy can defy him. Lily tells Asuma that even if he is right, public opinion will be manipulated to make it seem like justice is on Shion's side. Asuma takes a moment to think about all these, and he just ignores everything. He then asks Lily how his tie looks on him. Lily is blown away by his aura, and she assures him that the tie looks nice. With this, Asuma stands up to leave for the duel. Lily is shocked that there is no ounce of fear in the guy, leaving her to wonder if he was even listening to what she has been saying. On the way to the arena, he runs into Izuya, and the two exchange what can be described as a coded glance. Meanwhile, Shion has arrived at the arena, and the elites are cheering for him, telling him to trash Asuma and finish him off. Not long after this, Asuma shows up too. Shion commends him for not running away, and Asuma appreciates the gesture. Out of nowhere, Shion asks Asuma who he is. This question shocks Asuma, who believes that Shion has seen through him that he is a reincarnated being. Shion tells Asuma that he is taking the match seriously because Asuma was able to defeat Kiryu and Izuya, which are definitely not flukes. This is exactly why he is asking Asuma who he is, and he accompanies the question with an overwhelming battle aura. Asuma doesn't even flinch amidst all the intimidation, and he simply tells Shion that he is Asuma. Shion is impressed that Asuma didn't even flinch when he tried to overwhelm him with his battle aura, and he lets him know that he has no intention of underestimating him. Shion tells him that he is going to face him with everything he has and crush him with all of his might. Asuma smiles when he hears this, telling Shion that this is exactly what he was hoping for, and he assures him that he is not going to hold back either. Just as the referee is about to start the match, Shion tells him to wait. Shion then tells Asuma that he is prepared to show him mercy because it is customary for the noble Fukata family. Shion tells Asuma that if he submits his letter of withdrawal at that instant, he is willing to let him off with a loss by default. And this way, Asuma would not get hurt, but it would be a shame that the students that have gathered would have came for nothing. Shion asks Asuma what his decision is, and Asuma turns to the referee to ask him something too. Asuma asks Shion how his rank would be if he wins the match. The referee reveals that Shion is currently an S-rank student, while Asuma is an F-rank. This means Asuma will shoot up to A rank if he manages to win the duel. After hearing this, Asuma turns to Shion and tells him that he will be willing to back down from the match if he is willing to raise his rank from F to S. Asuma caps it off by telling Shion that he will also avoid getting hurt if they do it that way. The moment he says this, Shion's rage overwhelms the entire room. Shion tells Asuma that it has been a long time since someone stepped out of their way in front of him. Because of how rude Asuma is, Shion assures him that he is not going to forgive him even if he begs or cries. In fact, he is ready to beat Asuma to a complete pulp. Asuma taunts him further by telling him to come at him by all means. Shion angrily tells the referee to start the match, and since Shion is his subordinate's reincarnation from the past, Asuma knows he can't hold back and risks losing. Asuma plans to go with the full power of the ancient magic right from the start. Asuma unveils his magic circle, shocking the whole room, since they have not seen a magic circle like that of Asuma before. Asuma then hurls a magic blast at Shion, but before it can get to him, it is intercepted. It turns out that Shion is using an auto-intercept earth attribute magic. Asuma is not surprised because this was how his previous self was moving too. Shion then tells Asuma that his magic of unknown origin is not going to work on him. Shion grabs his sword, telling Asuma that he is prepared to end the fight with one swing. Asuma is blown away by the sword, since it is acting both as a smart rod and a physical blade. Asuma watches Shion cook up his attack, and he figures out what Shion's counter strategy is. Asuma is impressed, and he prepares to be the one to break Shion's impenetrable space. To Shion, Asuma is an irregular mutation who appeared out of nowhere. He sees him as a filthy nuisance who disturbs the harmony of the school, which is why he can't have this. Shion is confident that Asuma doesn't have what it takes to block his attack, and even the students are all hyped to see Shion's finishing move. To make it worse for Asuma, he finds himself trapped by Shion's magic to prevent him from escaping. The moment Shion knows that Asuma is trapped, he makes his move. Myun watches in awe, wondering what Asuma is going to do because Shion's slash can cut down even the hardest material on the planet. As the slash travels toward Asuma, he takes off his tie, saying he is done playing nice. He then casts a hardening spell on the tie, turning it into a rock-solid material. With this, he blocks Shion's attack and even shatters it. This shocks Shion and everyone in the room, since Asuma blocked Shion's deadly technique with just a tie. Shion also activates a vanishing magic to dissipate the restriction magic that was holding him in place. Once he is free, Asuma vanishes, sending chills down Shion's spine. Meanwhile, Asuma is preparing for a counterattack, and Shion is panicking at the mere thought of this. Realizing that Asuma is nowhere to be found, Shion reinforces his absolute space in preparation for an attack. Asuma suddenly appears behind him, and just as he is about to land his strike, the auto-intercept system comes into play again. A giant hand emerges from beneath and blocks Asuma's attack, giving Shion all the time he needs to send a slash in Asuma's way. However, Asuma manages to dodge the strike, and he throws away his sword before going after Shion. Shion believes that Asuma is setting himself up for death with what he is doing. However, Asuma shocks him by keeping his particle dissipation spell on. This dissolves everything that might block Asuma's path as he makes his way to Shion. Just as he reaches Shion, he whips out another sword and swings it hard at Shion. Lily is shocked when she sees this, and she realizes that Asuma kept the second tie too. Shion finds himself struggling against Asuma's overwhelming strength, but Asuma commends him for holding on, since he planned to end the fight in just a strike. Shion also admits that Asuma is the first to get close to his domain, and because of this, he plans to unveil his secret sword technique for the first time. Just then, Shion unleashes his magic sword, the hazy full moon, which emits a bright light. Asuma fails to stop it, and Shion gets a direct thrust to his chest. Myun smiles because this is a sword technique that combines disrupting magic sword with a piercing magic sword, and it is something even she cannot dodge. The hit goes directly into his chest, sending a wave of atomic damage into Asuma's body. Asuma loses mobility and crashes to the ground, leaving Lily screaming out in pain and despair. With Asuma unresponsive, Shion is worried that Asuma is dead because he put too much power into the strike. Shion tells the referee to check on Asuma, and he rushes over to do so. Shion is already prepared to accept the punishment for Asuma's death, under the guise that it was a mistake. Suddenly, Asuma stands back on his feet like a zombie, and he looks terrifying in the process too. Shion is stunned because Asuma shouldn't be able to withstand the secret technique of his magic swordsmanship. Asuma then tells Shion that he was wrong from the start, since he believed he was giving it his all, but he was subconsciously looking down on Shion. However, now that he is back, Asuma is ready to get serious with him. Asuma walks toward Shion, and he panics as he prepares to use his secret sword technique again. Asuma knows that his body's mana is insane, but it lacks issues with stamina. He figures out that the damage he took from Shion earlier on was deadly, and to avoid dragging things further, he plans to finish the fight early. Asuma plans to compress the mana within the magic circuits to the threshold limit so he can temporarily enhance physical abilities. Even though it was his first time doing it, he was able to pull it off easily with his body glowing really hard. Asuma is thankful that he is going up against a strong opponent because this has made him dive into construction and experimentation right on the battlefield. While Asuma is thinking about all of this, Shion sees it as an opening to attack him. Shion plans to land the finishing blow, but before he can do that, Asuma appears behind him. Shion is stunned by just how fast the dude is, leaving him to wonder just how a human is able to achieve this kind of speed. Nonetheless, he believes that he still has a secret weapon and he unleashes his familiar. His familiar emerges from underneath to grab Asuma's legs. Shion laughs at Asuma because he believes that he has successfully restrained Asuma's movements. However, Asuma shocked him by dragging out the familiar with just one hand. Asuma hurls it into the distance like it is paper before finishing it off with a magic spell, shocking the whole room. Asuma tells Shion that his option to use automatic interception is now gone, since he has taken down his familiar. Shion trembles when he sees this, and Asuma walks toward him, telling him that it is over. Shion cannot believe what is unfolding right in front of him, since he is supposed to be the top Japanese swordsman. However, he is not ready to concede defeat, and he screams at the top of his voice to summon his last resort. 3,000 years ago, Asuma had walked in on Shion developing a new magic that draws out the hidden abilities within oneself. Shion tells Asuma that it is possible to increase the amount of inherent mana by about 10 times. Asuma was impressed when he heard this, but Shion mentioned that it had a side effect. He tells him that the caster's brutal side will manifest once it is used. Because of this, Shion believes that it needs more refinement. Nonetheless, he reveals that they have found a human suitable for the experiment, and since it is going to be a dangerous experiment, Asuma asks him who the experiment subject is. Shion then tells Asuma who he has in mind, and after hearing this, Asuma tells Shion to continue his work, assuring him that he is going to rely on his new magic. Now, in the present, Shion is able to activate this magic, and his alter ego emerges. He dives toward Asuma like a maniac, ready to slice him to pieces. Even Asuma can see that the dude has become insanely fast by boosting his magic circuit and dramatically improving his physical abilities. Shion's insane speed forces Asuma to keep jumping backwards, and Shion makes fun of him, telling him to stop running. With Shion's destructive ability going rampage, Asuma can see that he has been able to awaken his potential from 3,000 years ago. He figures out that the others also did the same when they found themselves in an extreme state. Nonetheless, Asuma doesn't think Shion still poses a threat to him. Not long after this, Shion corners Asuma, which has been his game plan from the start. Asuma is impressed that even in his crazy state, he is still calculating his moves. Shion is glad that everything worked out, and he tells Asuma that he is coming after him with his final secret technique. This is a technique that fires tens of the one-hit kill magic sword, Hazy New Moon. Asuma is worried because he doesn't know if he can even take the damage from the technique head-on. Even with the danger facing him, Asuma still thinks he is on top. Asuma then figures out that he has to intercept Shion's secret technique. With this, Asuma constructs a magic circle to intercept Shion's barrage of attacks. The magic circle forms a giant three-dimensional lens, and Shion's first attack touches the giant lens positioned by Asuma. In addition to the analytical skill that Shion infused in the magic circle, he added a novel arrangement to it. Instead of automatically analyzing the touched target, it transmitted the raw, exposed information directly to Asuma. Asuma then performs a high-speed analysis in his brain, using the supercomputer as a reference. With this computer working, he was able to process information close to the speed of light. This basically makes Shion's fast slashes look slow, since there is no way they can beat the speed of light. To put into perspective how impressive it is, Asuma was able to finish all of this in just 0.1 seconds. The moment he is done, he blocks Shion's attacks and counters him, which sends a wave to push Shion backward. However, he pulls himself together again and goes after Asuma, but he easily blocks the attack. Asuma grabs his sword and breaks it before punching Shion really hard on the face to knock him to the ground. Asuma points his sword at Shion, urging him to surrender or get stabbed in the worst possible way. Realizing that he is going to get himself killed if he continues acting brave or stubborn, Shion has no choice but to surrender. Asuma then smiles at him, asking him if he has finally learned his place. Since he has already lost, Shion then asks Asuma how he was able to predict his attack because it is impossible for the human brain to be able to do so. Asuma smiles and he understands his confusion. He then explains that he applied the principle of the quantum computer that is inside the magical analysis to boost the circulating mana in his brain. Shion is surprised when he hears this, and Asuma says science actually works well with ancient magic. However, Asuma lets him know that he was able to develop these countermeasures thanks to Izuya. Before coming to the fight, Izuya had told Asuma that Shion possesses an aggressive alternate personality. He informs him that he has a gentle, normal personality and another one, which is aggressive. He urged Asuma not to let his guard down until he had defeated the alter ego. Shion refuses to believe that there is a possibility of an ordinary mage being able to do this, and Asuma smiles at him, telling him that he is not an ordinary mage because he is a grand mage. Meanwhile, the students have erupted in joy as they celebrate Asuma's win, and Lily couldn't be prouder in the stands. After the battle, the news of a colorless defeat of Shion spreads widely, and they know that this is something that will remain in the books for generations to come. Asuma was also given his reward for defeating Shion, and he was promoted to A rank, which has some added perks to it, like a longer period of time in the magic analysis room. Asuma is pleased that he is able to achieve this, since he won't have to secure authorization to use the room every day. In addition, it will make his mission even faster. Asuma is eagerly looking forward to the things that will be created using the quantum computer. Later that day, Asuma returns home, and he realizes that it has been 1 week since he reincarnated, and his knowledge about the modern era has deepened. He has also learned a lot about the Earth and the fact that there was a cultural discontinuity that happened between 3,000 years ago and the present day. Basically, there were things that were passed down from ancient to modern times, and some were not. The source of the discontinuity is called the Great Calamity. Due to this, magic declines and science develops. Asuma is glad that it was just a decline, not a complete eradication. Ancient magic became a minority and was treated as a cult, but it later came to the spotlight again, thanks to the power of science. It was arranged into modern magic using scientific power that basically anyone can use, unlike the ancient magic that requires talent to be used. And to put it into perspective, the kingdom that betrayed Asuma long ago has perished. However, since Asuma has run into 3 of his former subordinates, he figures out that Miyun is also somewhere in the academy. In fact, he believes that the king, who betrayed him in the past, is also present in the modern era. Just then, Asuma's scheduled alarm goes off, and Asuma realizes that he has a report that has a deadline that he needs to work on. Asuma realizes that young Asuma was working on something he had invented back in ancient times. Since he is the genesis of it all, Asuma is confident that he is going to get it done in no time. He then notices a note on the table, and when he opens it, he realizes that the things written in it have been covered by ink. Asuma then uses his magic to erase the ink, and he is surprised to see that it is a bucket list. This is the list of things that Asuma wanted to get done before he died, and suddenly, one of them catches his eye, which is to meet his long-lost family. This is when Asuma realizes that young Asuma's wish wasn't vengeance, but family. Since young Asuma is keen on meeting his family, old Asuma promises to fulfill his wish. The next day, Asuma arrives at the academy looking like a proper student, and he catches everyone's attention with the way he carries himself. As he walks through the school, the students are all amazed at how he changed out of nowhere. He was once a trash in the school, but he suddenly became a celebrity, and he even has Izuya following him around. What makes him even more impressive is the fact that he is a colorless mage. Izuya then informs him that he has submitted an application to leave the S4 so that they can create a new faction. In addition, Izuya assures him that they should be able to secure a club room. Asuma is pleased with his work and he commends him for everything. Suddenly they are ambushed by the student press who have done their research on Asuma. They talk about his beauty and how he has been able to defeat the S4 members. The press members want to interview Asuma, but he walks right past them, leaving the press members utterly embarrassed. However, press members are always persistent, and because of this, they chase after Asuma. Izuya, on the other hand, escorts Asuma to his class door before leaving, and just when Asuma is about to settle in, the press members show up yet again. Asuma blatantly tells the lady that he doesn't take press requests, but she is very persistent. She assures Asuma that she is not going to leave until Asuma answers her questions. Realizing that the girl is persistent and stubborn, Asuma tells her that she has to talk to Lily because she is his secretary. Lily is shocked when she hears this. Asuma lets the press know that they have to get permission from Lily before talking to him. However, he urges them to do it after school, since they have class now. The girl is happy to hear this, and she assures Asuma that she will be back for the questions. After she is gone, Asuma whispers in Lily's ear, telling her that he is definitely going to repay her for her efforts. Not long after this, the teacher enters the class. Asuma, on the other hand, is busy thinking about how his life has been since he became famous. He figures out that he has to secure a secret place where he can live peacefully. Meanwhile, Lily is blown away by just how dependent Asuma has been on her. This leaves her fantasizing about who Asuma's lover is yet again. Later on, Asuma continues his usual student life and he participates in a swimming competition where he comes first. What makes his win very impressive is the fact that he didn't even use magic, and he was able to set a new record of 35 seconds. Asuma can also see that he is getting really used to the body, but at the same time, he knows he can't show his strength too much because he is going to stand out. Asuma can only pray that Izuya's application for the club room becomes successful. After leaving the pool, he heads to the bathroom to wash off. Since the swimming lesson is the last class for the day, he thinks of stopping at the magic analysis room after he is done talking to Izuya. Suddenly, he notices a strange figure in front of him, which turns out to be a girl. Before he knows what is going on, the girl walks over and turns out to be Mune, and she tells Asuma that she wants to know him deeper. Asuma immediately becomes cautious because he can see that the person in front of him is not an ordinary person. Asuma tries to play it cool, telling Mune that she is currently in the men's bathroom. However, Mune argues that she is in the right place. Asuma then suggests that she leave before the other boys enter to find her. However, she lets Asuma know that they are the only ones there. Asuma turns around and realizes that everything is already different. Even the students have vanished, and he quickly realizes that something is wrong. He wonders if it is a magic attack, but he basically figures out that he is in a precarious situation. He decides to analyze the situation better, and to do this, he concludes that putting distance between himself and Mune will work out just fine. Asuma dashes over to the door, and as he prepares to rush through the locker room, he suddenly hears Mune behind him. This leaves him shocked and confused as he tries to figure out what is actually going on. He wonders when she was actually able to catch up to him. Suddenly, Mune appears behind him, telling him to get some clothes on because his body is tempting. Asuma ignores her and focuses on trying to understand what is actually happening. He initially thinks it's teleportation magic, but he trashes the idea, since he can't confirm any trace of an incantation. He decides to play along and figure out what her game plan is. While putting on her clothes, Mune notices that Asuma is standing cautiously, and she urges him to stay calm, because if she wanted to hurt him, she would have. She tells Asuma that she just wants him to know everything about her before he makes his decision. Asuma is confused by this, since he doesn't know what she means by knowing everything. After making sure she has sent enough fear into his body, Mune finally introduces herself, telling Asuma that she is an idol with over 3 million followers. She introduces herself in the most fashionable way, but this doesn't get a reaction out of Asuma, who just stares at her blandly. Deep down, he is trying to figure out her moves because he is familiar with her moves from 3,000 years ago. Asuma knows how dangerous it is for him if he is unable to figure out Mune's secret. Since he doesn't notice any sign of ancient magic, he wonders if she was able to acquire a new magic after she resurrected. Mune soon notices how tense Asuma is, and she decides to tell him about herself. This is basically the reason she wanted to be alone with him. Mune starts by citing examples of animals like praying mantises that always eat their male counterparts. She mentions that there are many creatures in the world that eat their male counterparts, and she considers this a useless and dumb behavior. Mune then reveals she, on the other hand, wants to be dominated and consumed by a superior male. However, she doesn't want a weak male because she wants to be dominated by a strong man who can surpass her. She mentions that she can smell the superior odor coming from Asuma, who was able to defeat the other 3 members of the S4. Out of nowhere, she adds that Asuma is a sadist. Asuma is shocked when he hears this because he doesn't know what is giving her such an idea. Mune believes that they are a match, and this is why she wants to test out his strength. She unleashes a slash very close to Asuma that cuts his hair. This sends a chill down his spine because he knows that he would have died, since he couldn't sense the slash. This leaves him trembling because he doesn't want to believe that her speed surpasses that of Shion's sword slashes. Asuma trashes this idea, saying there is another trick behind it. Mune smiles at Asuma, urging him not to disappoint her, and Asuma, on the other hand, finally pulls himself together to properly unravel the mystery behind Mune. Asuma is taking a look at his surroundings and putting everything into memory when he is slashed on the arm by Mune's attack. Before he knows it, another strike hits him on the leg, and Mune tells him that he will be free to do whatever he wants with her if he manages to beat her. However, she lets him know that if he fails to lay a finger on her, she is going to kill him. She then tells him that he is free to bow before her and grovel at her feet if he doesn't want her to kill him. Mune says breaking a sadist like Asuma would be a joy to her. All while she is saying this, Asuma remains mute, and Mune continues to deal damage to his body. Mune makes fun of Asuma, asking him if he is so scared to make a move, and she tells him that he is a total letdown. She also reveals her disappointment at Asuma's unwillingness to fight. Asuma finally breaks the silence, and Mune believes that he wants to beg for his life. However, Asuma tells her that she is getting it wrong because he only wants to tell her that he will never grovel or beg for his life. Asuma then adds that he doesn't even like Mune, and this sends a wave of anger through her body. Asuma continues by telling her that all of her talks about strong males and domination don't concern him. Asuma then caps it off by saying he doesn't have the desire to get himself a lover. Asuma makes fun of Mune for thinking she has a chance at controlling him, letting her know that they are on different levels because he is way stronger than her. This pisses Myun off, and she tells Asuma to back his words by turning the situation around because a male who cannot love her doesn't deserve a reason to exist. She angrily hurls a magic attack at Asuma, and he blocks the initial attack. However, Myun follows through with another attack that slashes his chest. However, Asuma is not worried because he has successfully completed his preparations. Myun also notices that something is wrong because Asuma hasn't even tried to fight back. Just then, Asuma whips out a magic circle and he makes himself the target of the circle. Myun is surprised to see this, and she thinks Asuma has gone crazy because he is trying to hurt himself. Asuma then laughs at Myuni, telling her that she is getting everything wrong because this is basically his solution to the problem. He has found a way to break through Myun's trap, and this is the only way. Initially, Asuma was worried because he found it strange that an Archmage like himself couldn't perceive Myun's attack trajectory at all. Because of this, he deployed invincible minds infused with the analysis skill into the air. All while Myun was attacking him, he was analyzing the environment to find a loophole. It turns out that one of the mines was accidentally destroyed, but it was with this that he was able to notice an attack which came from another phase. He realized that the attack was so fast because it hit him when he was still trying to pull himself together. Asuma starts wondering what could be happening that Myun's attack speed is greater than that of a swordsman like Shion. However, Asuma was able to figure out the trick to it. He noticed that the clock was not malfunctioning, and it was his perception that was off. Asuma figured out that he is currently under the influence of a delay magic that obstructs his perception. However, the problem is that there is not a trace of the magic being cast by Myun herself. Asuma then concludes that there is another mage who is maintaining the spell at all times. In the long run, he was able to figure out that there are artificial life forms attached to his body, and they are all Myun's familiars. Apparently, Myun had rigged the shower with water mixed with her familiars. It turns out that the more the familiars attach themselves to a target, the more their perception is delayed, making their awareness slow down. To put it into perspective, he became so slow making Myun's movement too fast for him. However, to get rid of the magic, he has to hit himself with a spell that sends him flying. Nonetheless, the direction that he is sent flying will be the key to turning the tables. Asuma's spell comes into play when he flies into the sauna room, and his body erupts in flames. This, in turn, burns off all of Myun's familiars that are attached to his body, but at the same time, his shirt gets burned too. Asuma confirms if he worked everything out well when he checks out the time, and realizes that the flow of time has returned to normal. Asuma smiles because the tables have just turned in his favor. Myun is terrified when she realizes that her magical creatures have been burned away, leaving her wondering how he knew. Nonetheless, she thinks she is safe because he hasn't noticed his other trap. However, Asuma shocks her, telling her that he can see that she has the same magical life forms on her body too. Asuma says their magic effect is high speed and agility, which is basically delay and acceleration. Asuma says she is able to deploy her trap through the synergy of these two spells. Myun is left in complete shock when she hears this because Asuma has basically figured everything out. Myun then decides to attack first, and she launches a high-speed attack, but this can no longer match Asuma's perception again. Myun appears behind Asuma and she launches a powerful aqua laser at him, but he vanishes even before the attack can hit. Out of nowhere, Asuma appears behind her, and when she tries to run away, she realizes that she has no chance whatsoever because Asuma has already covered all of her escape routes. Asuma lets her know that there is no way she can escape. He lets her know that he is going to annihilate the entire mana surrounding her. Asuma then hits her with a powerful magical attack that shatters her mana and leaves her defenseless. Myun falls to her knees and watches in horror as her mana vanishes into thin air. Asuma walks over to her, telling her that the match is over and urges her not to resist any further. Suddenly, Asuma notices something strange. He realizes that Myun is a freaking man, and he asks her if this is what she was talking about when she said she is in the right place by being in the men's washroom. Myun confesses and says she can alter her body shape by controlling the water within her, but because the mana has been depleted, her true self has been exposed. However, she lets Asuma know that her feelings of being dominated by a strong man are not a lie. Myun tells Asuma that he is free to laugh at her, but Asuma shocks her by placing a towel on her. Asuma apologizes to her, saying destroying her clothes was not his intention. Myun is blown away and cannot believe her eyes as Asuma bows to her, apologizing to her. She then asks him why he is treating her like a girl, and Asuma reveals that gender knows no gender. In fact, he is willing to help her repair her smart rod, and Asuma smiles while telling her how he was able to see through her attack. Myun's face turns totally red when she realizes that Asuma is a complete gentleman. Asuma then reminds her of what she said about giving herself over to whatever he wants if he is able to defeat her. Since he has managed to defeat her, he tells her that he has an order for her. Asuma says he has things that he wishes to accomplish at the academy, and he needs her talent for magic design because it is exceptional. Asuma then makes his wishes clear. He tells Myun that he wants her to leave the S4 and join his faction. Myun then reminds Asuma that he said he didn't like her. Asuma confirms this, saying he actually doesn't like her, but he likes the fact that she is reckless. However, he doesn't dislike her either, and this statement leaves Myun totally red-faced. Asuma then suggests that they get a spare uniform before anyone shows up. He also lets her know that they have things that they need to discuss. Just like an overly excited kid, Myun acknowledges his greatness by calling him Sir Asuma. Later on, the academy's headmaster is seen receiving his familiar in his office. Surprisingly, she looks awfully similar to the king from 3,000 years ago. He asks his familiar if it was able to gather useful information for him. The familiar then projects its findings on the screen. The familiar was able to capture the fight between Asuma and Myun, and this shocks the headmaster. The moment he sees Asuma, he realizes that he has seen him somewhere before. He remembers that Asuma tried to off himself some time ago, but after he miraculously woke up, he has been making some insane moves. After taking a closer look, the headmaster quickly realizes that Asuma is the same Asuma from 3,000 years ago. He figures out that young Asuma's attempted self-harm was what gave old Asuma the chance to reincarnate into his body. The headmaster is surprised that Asuma was reborn in this era, and he concludes that the chain of fate that binds them has been forged. However, he is prepared to sever the chain and cut ties with Asuma forever. The headmaster is pleased with his familiar's work, and he gives him a high-quality magic stone made by the Swaragi Corporation as its reward. The familiar happily takes the magic stone and it consumes it. Sometime later, Asuma is seen in class reading his notes, while the teacher talks about philosophy and the pioneers of philosophy, like Socrates. It appears that the teacher is only wasting his time because the entire class is focused on the elegant Asuma. At the same time, Lily gets a message from the press club telling her that they are going to interview Asuma that very day, no matter what happens. Not long after this, the class ended, and the teacher was just happy that it was all over without a hitch. Lily then tells him that she would like to speak to him about the press club. Asuma realizes that he has somehow put Lily in a tough spot, but it was the only thing he could do at that moment. Asuma then tells Lily that she is a big help to him, and she hasn't forgotten his promise to reward her. Lily almost explodes from blushing when Asuma says this. Asuma makes it worse when he walks up to her and tells her that he would like them to get along even better. Lily accepts this, but she is confused as to what he means by this. After saying this, he turns around to leave, while Lily is freaking out where she is. Asuma then makes his way to the magic analysis room with the intention of creating a revolutionary magic that very day. The moment he steps into the room, he notices that something is different, and just then, a girl emerges in front of him. Asuma stays on his guard until the girl suddenly bows to him, calling him her master, while also apologizing for keeping him waiting. This is when it dawns on Asuma that the autonomous AI assistant that he used all of his wisdom to create is finally operational. Apparently, he was working on the AI as a side project for his new magic development. Asuma expresses his surprise that the AI came out quickly enough. He touches her cheek to confirm that she has a holographic body. The AI then tells Asuma that the simulations are already complete, and she lets him know that she can reproduce thousands of patterns inside the room concerning the new magic he is developing. Asuma is happy to hear this, and he suggests that they start immediately. The AI bows to Asuma as she acknowledges his order. It turns out that Asuma only wanted to create the AI to understand modern magic, but he ended up creating something high-end than he expected. Asuma initially thought modern magic was trash, but after learning more, he realizes that the magic is actually decent. Asuma figures out that the AI will grow into something more powerful and dependent if he continues teaching her everything that he knows. And when it comes to general knowledge, he plans to rely on Lily. After she is done with the entire simulation, she suggests that they try it out in real time. She engages the computer, and it starts calculating everything that is needed. Before Asuma knows it, the whole process has run deep into the night. Asuma is thankful that he was promoted to A rank, which gave him more time to stay in the magical analysis room. Just then, the AI tells Asuma to get at least 8 hours of rest because her scan shows that he is fatigued. Asuma agrees with her, saying he has been fighting repeatedly since he got reincarnated. He admits that the modern world is highly stimulating, and he has somehow found himself engrossed in it. Asuma then thanks the AI for the advice, but she doesn't think she deserves any praise because she is just a source code. Asuma disagrees with her, saying her routine is human itself, and since he was the one who designed it, he surely knows this. It then dawns on him that she needs a name. Asuma remembers that her GPU was German-made, and he decides to take a German name for her. After thinking over it for a minute, he settles for Val, and Val humbly accepts the name. She even blushes, and when Asuma sees this, he points out that this is part of what makes her human. Moments later, Val tells him that the simulation is almost complete, and with the way Asuma is looking at it, it appears that it is going to work. Just then, an emergency message comes in for Asuma. Asuma asks Val who the sender is, and he is shocked when he learns that it is the academy's headmaster. The headmaster tells Asuma to come to the headmaster's office immediately, and this leaves Asuma wondering why he has been summoned. Since it is the headmaster, he figures out that he can't ignore the summons. Asuma then tells Val to continue with the simulation. He also tells her to run a certain program code, and after she is done, she is to send the materials to Azuya in his name. Val acknowledges the order and gives him directions to the headmaster's office. As he steps away from the room, Asuma has no idea that he is being watched by the headmaster's familiar. In a flashback from 3,000 years ago, warriors are seen engaging the otherworldly creatures, the Omega. The warriors have lost loads of comrades, but they refuse to back down because if they do, the kingdom is going to suffer. Suddenly, the enemy starts to prepare for a coordinated attack, which would wipe out the stubborn warriors. Even in the face of danger, the warriors remain steadfast, and just as they are about to meet their maker, Asuma appears out of nowhere, blocking the attack and wiping out the Omegas at once, using a devastating force. When the dust settles, the warriors thank him for his help, and he tells them to report the situation to the Senate. Asuma looks around, and he berates himself for not being able to save the dead warriors. Moments later, his subordinates join him on the battlefield. The four are also pissed that they got there late, which caused the death of countless warriors. Izuya then suggests that they take solace in the fact that they wiped out the invaders. Mune expresses her concern about the creatures since she can't find them in the magical encyclopedia. Shion reveals that the creatures appeared out of nowhere, as if they came from another world. Asuma then tells his comrades that they need to remain vigilant against the annoying invaders. Suddenly the king, Mel, shows up on the scene to commend their great works. Asuma immediately bows to him to welcome him, and the king urges him to get on his feet. Asuma urges the king to leave the area because it is dangerous, and Mel assures him that he is aware, but he has to see the situation with his own eyes. And he thanks Asuma for his help because he was able to witness the invaders firsthand. Asuma reveals that everything happened just the way Mel said it would, and even though there were casualties, the invaders have been stopped. Mel commends Asuma for his great work, and he suddenly notices that he is cut on the arm. Asuma tells him not to worry about it because it is just a scratch, but Mel ignores him. He tears a section of his robe and uses this to wrap his arm, shocking Asuma. Mel tells Asuma that since he has no powers, aside from his foresight, helping Asuma is not a big deal to him. Mel mentions that it is his job to protect the people of the kingdom with his power. Apparently, there is a legend in the kingdom about the magic staff in the Book of Wisdom. Mel believes that Asuma is the staff, while he is the book. Asuma is honored by the king's words, and Mel lets him know that he is counting on him. Now in the present day, Asuma wonders why he is remembering the memory when he is on his way to the headmaster's office. Moments later, Asuma arrives at the office, and he is told to enter. However, he is surprised when he enters the office to see that there is no one there. Suddenly, a magic circle appears below and above, and he finds himself in another location. He realizes that he has just been sent away, using teleportation magic. He is still trying to understand his situation when he sees the headmaster's familiar staring at him in the distance. This is when it finally dawns on Asuma that he has fallen into a trap. Asuma is still trying to understand what is happening when a giant robot equipped with a Gatling gun emerges from under the headmaster's familiar. The moment he sees this, he realizes that the headmaster is also out to get him. Since the old dude is also against him, Asuma has no plans to show him mercy. However, Asuma could see that there was no sign of magical energy from the robot and the familiar, which could only mean that the headmaster didn't see him as a huge threat. Suddenly, a bullet is fired from the gun, and Asuma slightly dodges the bullet. The bullet hits the wall behind him, ultimately destroying everything behind him. Asuma is shocked when he sees this because the bullet is actually infused with magical effect, but there are no signs of magic activation. Before he knows it, the gun fires hundreds of bullets at him, and it dawns on him that the bullets have been reinforced with a magical effect beforehand, which is why there is no need for chanting. While doing his best to dodge the bullets, he realizes that the bullets are not only imbued with explosion-type magic, but with acceleration-type magic, and even mental contamination-type magic. Asuma initially thought he was looked down upon, but he soon realizes that he's been shown no mercy. Instead of panicking, he becomes interested in the magical bullet because, looking at it from a theoretical standpoint, it is inefficient, but by releasing a large amount of it randomly and at high speed, it has become the perfect anti-magic soldier weapon. It is basically a harsh fusion of magic and science, and Asuma knows fully well that Izuya would hate something like this. Just then, all the bullets become faster, and he figures out that the allocation of acceleration-type magic bullets has been increased compared to the explosion-type ones. While moving around and dodging the ones coming at him horizontally, he almost gets hit by a bullet descending vertically. He notices this on time and tries activating his barrier magic, but to his surprise, this doesn't work, and he gets hit in his right arm. Asuma watches in horror when he senses a wave coming from the robot, and he realizes that he is in a magic-prohibited space. This is basically why his magic was prevented and nullified. It soon dawns on Asuma that the space can give way to powerful attacks as long as it doesn't require chanting, which further points to the fact that the headmaster is quite the strategist. However, Asuma knows that in order to prohibit the space, a prior system specification is required, and it appears to be a countermeasure based on the prediction that Asuma would use annihilation magic. Asuma starts wondering if the headmaster knows about his past life to have put this kind of countermeasure together. With a barrage of bullets coming at him again, Asuma decides to chant the most effective magic that has no restriction. Thanks to this spell of hardness and reinforcement on his uniform, Asuma is able to block incoming bullets. However, he knows that it is a temporary solution because it is going to be broken very soon. He remembers that he has been undergoing advanced magic research since morning, which means his mental and physical conditions are not in their optimal state. Without a doubt, Asuma figures out that he can't allow himself to be dragged into a battle of attrition. Just as usual, Asuma already understands whatever is being thrown at him, and he believes that it is time to defeat the enemy. Asuma immediately whips out his phone and puts a call through to Val, who tells him that what they are working on is already complete. In addition, she has located Asuma's coordinates and has sent the transfer item to his hand. Asuma thanks Val for the help as he grabs the transfer item with the intention of generating a familiar. Asuma is glad that Val was able to complete the familiar pretty quickly after leaving the finishing touches to her. Since he has been able to generate the transfer item, he figures out that they are under the Academy's underground shelter because any other place far from the school would have made it impossible for him to even be able to call Val. With the transfer item in his hand, he activates the Gigant mode, ultimately disintegrating the cube and transforming it into a fully functional scary-type battle android. Asuma's familiar doesn't hesitate before blocking the incoming bullets with ease. After blocking the bullets, leaving the enemy stunned, Asuma's familiar goes after the headmaster's Gatling gun and his familiar. The familiar moves at such a crazy speed that it gets to the familiar before it realizes what is happening. With just a single punch, it shatters the Gatling gun, scaring the headmaster's familiar. It tries sending disruption signals again, but Asuma smiles because this is useless. Apparently, whatever the headmaster's familiar is trying to do cannot affect Asuma's familiar because artificial organisms infuse magic directly to activate their bodies and trigger their effects, which requires no chanting. Because of this, the anti-magic space has no effect on Asuma's familiar, Gigant. Apparently, he had transplanted his own magic resistance into Gigant for this. This makes his familiar a berserker specialized in nothing but pure combat ability. This means Gigant cannot be contended with when it comes to raw power. Before the headmaster's familiar knows what's going on, the robot gets trashed by Gigant. The headmaster's familiar immediately kicks into data analysis mode, and after it finishes, the space gets lifted. The familiar then leaps through a portal, but Asuma chases it down. As they pass through the transfer portal, Gigant returns to his cube shape, and Asuma soon finds himself in the headmaster's office. Sitting across the room is the headmaster with a weird smile on his face. The headmaster then speaks out, telling Asuma that it's been 3,000 years already. Asuma is confused by this, but it soon dawns on him that the headmaster is King Mel. Mel confirms this, saying he is the ruler of Gran Gaia, and Asuma lets him know that his appearance has changed. However, Mel argues that Asuma is the one who changed because he didn't even recognize him at first. Asuma soon figures out that with the way Mel is talking to him, it appears that his memory is intact, and this can mean a couple of things. He wonders if the king is a reincarnation of his past self. Just then, Mel tells him that he is not like him or the other four, and Asuma immediately concludes that the king is a reincarnation, not a descendant like the rest of them. Mel then commends Asuma for being able to defeat his familiar, which shows that he is still potent, just like before. On the other hand, Asuma is still trying to understand what type of reincarnation magic Mel used, because he knows that the king from back then didn't have the aptitude as a mage. Since Mel couldn't use magic, Asuma could not understand the insane amount of mana that was pouring out of him. In fact, the mana emanating from Mel's body totally overwhelms even his own mana, and it doesn't look like he is even trying yet. In a flashback into the past, Asuma and his comrades are seen fighting the Omegas just as usual, but Kiryu lets him know that the Omegas are a problem. Apparently, they are always small from the start, but suddenly transform into a gigantic form of themselves. Shion also says the enemy appears to be emerging from a dimensional rift, according to the research he's carried out, and unless they destroy this dimensional rift, there is no way they are going to stop the Omegas from coming in. Asuma agrees with him that cutting off the source appears to be the best and only solution. Suddenly, Myun shows up telling Asuma that the Omegas they have been fighting are nothing but a distraction because the main force has invaded the kingdom. Everything in his head immediately goes dark, and while he is still processing this, His family's house is destroyed by a giant whale-like creature in the sky. Asuma immediately loses his mind, and he goes after the creature like a freaking maniac. His eyes turn white as he descends upon the creature and annihilates it. After defeating the creature, Asuma stands above his destroyed house with pictures of his loved ones soaked in blood. While staring at the sheer destruction left behind by the creature, Asuma falls to his knees, grabs his head, and screams out in agony, while his comrades stand behind him with horror written all over their faces. Later on, under a cold rain, Asuma buries his entire family, with his comrades present to provide emotional support. The question on their minds remains why the Omegas suddenly appeared in the capital and targeted Asuma's family house. The people start wondering if Mel's premonition is wrong, and they are pissed that Asuma's bloodline is about to come to a horrific end. The people love Asuma so much that they are even ready to let their daughters be his wife and carry his child, so they don't lose such a great bloodline. While the people are busy debating this, Mel shows up on the scene, shocking everyone. They can't believe that the king actually showed up to personally pay his respects. Mel then apologizes to Asuma, telling him they would have been able to prevent the catastrophe if only his premonition had come a little sooner. But Asuma humbly tells the king that he has no reason to apologize. The king starts shedding tears, telling Asuma that it is his fault because he is expected to protect the people of the kingdom. The king crying in front of everyone is enough to sway their anger, and Asuma soon urges the king to leave. As he leaves the scene, he still continues crying, but everything about him changes when he returns to his carriage. The king commends his assistant Richilo for putting everything together, and Richilo also tells the king that he managed to put up a splendid performance. Mel smiles evilly when he hears this, and he mocks the whole idea of protecting the kingdom because, instead of protection, all he has brought is nothing but destruction. Now in the present day, Mel asks Asuma what he thinks of the anti-magic space that was constructed by his familiar. Asuma then replies that the fundamental theory of its construction seemed to be based on ancient magic from 3,000 years ago. Mel confirms this and says it is expected of Asuma, the legendary Great Mage, who is also the ultimate magic staff. Asuma thanks him for the compliment and then asks Mel how he possesses such a vast amount of mana. Mel laughs like a proper villain when he hears this, and he tells Asuma that seeing is faster than explaining with words. He then suggests that they continue their story from 3,000 years ago. Suddenly, Mel moves closer to Asuma, but his reflexes kick in, and he immediately dashes backward to put some distance between himself and Mel, while getting into a combat stance. Mel then asks Asuma if he would like to know what happened after he disappeared. Mel whips out a magic laser blade and charges toward Asuma at a blinding speed, aiming to decapitate him. Asuma manages to dodge the strike, but he can clearly see that the king is pretty dangerous because his physical abilities have drastically improved, which makes it hard for even him to track Mel's movements. Mel continues with his teasing words, asking Asuma if he is ready to know why he reincarnated in this current era and facing him again. Before Asuma knows it, a terrifying strike almost gets him, but he manages to dodge again. Asuma starts wondering if Mel is specializing in enhancement and agility-type spells, because he is circulating his internal mana throughout his body. Asuma finally tells Mel that he would like to know if he is prepared to answer him. Mel then mentions that Asuma is one of those people who are bound by the chain of fate, and this leaves Asuma confused. However, he decides to leave whatever Mel means by this because he is more concerned about analyzing him. He then comes to the conclusion that he is going to complete the analysis with the conversation he is about to have with him. Asuma is already worried because he knows what it means to have such an enormous amount of mana in one's body, because even controlling it is pretty dangerous, since one wrong move means that Mel can just go berserk and self-destruct. This leaves him wondering what could have happened to Mel after he reincarnated. Mel then starts his narration saying that after the threat of the Omegas passed 3,000 years ago, his premonition that Asuma would achieve an honorable death came to pass. However, Asuma doesn't think this is the case because there is no indication that he died an honorable death. Nonetheless, Mel continues his story, saying the kingdom was supposed to follow a path of glory, but a sudden great calamity struck. The enemies from the outside were gone, but an infectious disease spread throughout the kingdom, which is known as the magic corruption death disease. The body of the affected turns black as if it were corrupted by miasma, and this leads to death, which is where the name came from. Asuma is shocked to hear this, but Mel continues, saying that while the people were dying, the surviving mage doctors were busy investigating the pathogen, but even they were being killed by the disease. Later on, they found the pathogen, which causes negative effects by continuously circulating high concentrations of mana within the body. Even though the pathogen was identified, there was no cure for it. Before they knew it, it spread to the entire populace, and the kingdom was wiped out. Everyone, including the citizens and the mages, all perished thanks to this disease. Because of this, the magic that once resided in the Great Kingdom was severed from the world. Asuma then asks Mel why he couldn't foresee the great calamity with his power. Mel replies that he was already on his deathbed and was not in a state to use his true power, but while he was dying, he saw his final future prediction. The world was eventually rebuilt by a small number of humans who escaped the kingdom and lived scantily. However, there happens to be another calamity that will totally wipe out humanity because another enhanced strain of the magic corruption disease would emerge. Mel then reveals that the person who will create this deadly disease is Asuma. Asuma is shocked to hear this, and he holds his head in frustration, wondering why he would become such a threat.
Mel scoffs, reminding Asuma that his future prediction is absolute. Asuma is about to break down when it suddenly dawns on him that he is being lured into a trap. Mel continues by saying he reincarnated into this world to prevent the said tragedy from happening again, and because of this, he plans to kill Asuma right there. Mel dashes toward Asuma, planning to kill him for the sake of humanity. However, Asuma blocks the attack with a blast, and Mel commends him for having such incredible magic even in this world. Asuma then tells the king that he has no intentions of trusting his words. Asuma tells Mel that he can't believe that he is the cause of humanity's extinction, and he doesn't even want to believe in his trash prediction. Mel is surprised to hear this, and he tells Asuma that he actually speaks boldly, which is expected of the great mage. Mel realizes that Asuma is finally starting to figure out the truth, but he believes that this is already too late. Mel then tells Asuma that he already gained immense magical power when he reincarnated, but it appears that Asuma is still struggling with his reincarnated body. Mel then gradually unveils his overwhelming magic while asking Asuma if he has what it takes to withstand it. Horror is written all over Asuma's face as he realizes that he has just found himself in Kaiser's chamber, an emperor's space, which is from ancient magic.
Asuma cannot believe that the king just cast magic, but instead of thinking about that, Asuma quickly activates his magic to nullify whatever Mel is trying to achieve. Mel is impressed that Asuma is able to cast 2 spells simultaneously, but he asks Asuma how long he thinks he can hold out. Mel then hurls a new set of projectiles at Asuma, telling him that as long as his mana stays active, the projectiles will continue coming. However, Asuma is able to neutralize the incoming magic attacks. This leaves the battle between Asuma's annihilation magic and Mel's piercing magic. In truth, it is now a clash of whoever holds the most mana. Even though it was an offense and defense that lasted a few seconds, the collision of super high-tier magic generated a gravitational field strong enough to distort space, thus causing a magic quake throughout the entire academy. It was so massive that it could be compared to the earthquake generated from a state-led underground nuclear test. When the shockwave hit the academy, chaos erupts and the senior students urge their counterparts to get under the desks. However, when they realize that whatever is hitting them is more than an earthquake, they decide to immediately evacuate the students who are still in the school. Meanwhile, the other 4 have also sensed what is happening, and they all come to the same conclusion that what they are feeling is known as the mana wave. Mune remembers that she always saw it in her dreams, and something suddenly struck her, causing her to make a move. At the same time, it has become evident that the source of the whole thing is the headmaster's office. An explosion rocks the room, and even after everything that Asuma did, he is shocked to see that Mel remains unharmed. This is when he realizes that the king's ancient magic is fundamentally a mysterious magic. In fact, the magic is not even recorded in the kingdom's magic catalog. Even though Asuma is desperate to analyze the magic, he realizes that he lacks the information to do so. Just then, Mel tells Asuma that he managed to pull up a good fight, but it appears that he won the battle. Asuma is shocked and confused to hear this, and Mel lets him know that just as he was trying to analyze his magic, he was also doing the same through direct combat and direct observation by his familiar. With these 2 combined, Mel says his analysis is now complete. Mel confidently says he is always 1 step ahead of Asuma. Mel laughs out loud, telling Asuma that it is time to show him the result of his analysis. Mel cooks up a powerful attack and hurls it at Asuma, forcing him to frantically put up a shield, hoping to block the attack. Suddenly, Asuma's magic dissipates into mist, and Mel lets him know that his annihilation magic is quite invincible because once it is activated, it can scatter anything into mist. However, he has figured out that if he strikes the complex magic circle constructed before activation, he can nullify the entire spell formula. Asuma freezes in shock when he hears this because he doesn't even think something like this is possible. This is because a magic circle appears for only about 0.003 seconds, and to accurately snipe a microscopic spot in that instant means one thing. And this is the fact that Mel can actually see his attack before it is even activated. Mel laughs at Asuma because he finally understands, and Mel lets him know that it is time for him to finally die for the future of the world. Mel dashes toward Asuma, and even though Asuma tries to cook up a defensive spell, Mel still shatters it pretty easily. Asuma gets hit with several projectiles, but he manages to avoid any fatal hits. Mel is surprised that even though Asuma is cornered, he still believes that he has a chance. Deep down, Asuma is worried because his body is already building up fatigue, which is never good news. To make it worse, his mana is about to be depleted, but suddenly Asuma starts laughing, as he tells Mel that his own analysis is also complete. Mel doesn't feel scared as he dares Asuma to try out what he has analyzed. Mel hurls a bunch of projectiles at Asuma again, and Asuma figures out that he cannot defend against them, but the only choice is to turn them against him. Asuma is determined to win no matter what it costs, because he wants to avenge what happened in the past. Asuma then creates a magic circle, and to Mel, he believes that Asuma is only losing his mind in the face of danger, because all he is doing is a desperate move. Mel then taps into a more dangerous type of unique magic that was reserved for the kingdom. He considers this the supreme spell, which actually doesn't allow him to cast any other magic, but he believes that the sacrifice is worth it because once it is activated, time freezes and he can choose the optimal future from infinite paths. However, this drains a massive amount of mana, which is why he can only use it at the critical moment. With everything happening, Mel believes that he has found the right time to use it. With the magic activated, Mel decides to take his time to see Asuma's trajectory. After seeing the type of move that Asuma has cooked up, he realizes that Asuma has tried modern magic because ancient magic has failed. Mel also checks out the type of spells that he can use during this, and he realizes that Asuma is going for the Purgatory Cannon combined with Meteor Fall. Mel is impressed when he sees this because he finally realizes that Asuma didn't come without a plan. Mel knows fully well that he would have been injured if he had charged in blindly. Since this is the case, he decides to embed a dispel code into his saber so he can cancel Asuma's spells before activation. Once he does this, he plans to cut off Asuma's right arm, which is his source of magic. After this, Mel plans to pierce his heart and ultimately kill him. After putting everything together, Mel smiles because he believes that he has found the right timeline, and he immediately puts his plan into motion. Just as he wanted, he is able to break through Asuma's barrier and he cuts off his right arm. After this, he goes for Asuma's heart with the declaration that he has won. Just as his saber pushes through Asuma's chest, Asuma smiles, telling Mel that he is wrong because the victory belongs to him. Mel is shocked when his lower body starts to disappear, while wondering what just happened. Before he knows it, he gets knocked to the ground with a magic circle pressing him down. Surprisingly, he realizes that it was Asuma's severed arm that generated the magic circle. Mel's saber starts shutting down, and Asuma stands in front of him, looking down on him coldly. Mel screams out in horror, asking why his foresight failed him. Asuma then calmly tells him that his foresight is actually absolute, but the problem is that he cannot see the future after his death. This was the theory that Asuma came up with because he figured out that he could outsmart him once Mel believed that he was dead. Apparently, Asuma intentionally left Mel to sever his right arm by launching a reckless charge, which is why Mel made the desperate move. Just as planned, Mel actually delivered the killing blow and then let down his guard. It turns out that Asuma already pre-programmed a remote detonation spell inside the arm that he sacrificed. Asuma told the arm that it was to activate the annihilation magic on his mark the moment he was positioned behind the target. Asuma tells Mel that he put too much faith in his foresight, which is why he couldn't read the attack coming from his blind spot. Because he was certain of victory, Mel had actually left himself wide open, and he failed to see through his trap. With confidence, Asuma lets Mel know that he lost because he was cocky. Just like he always says, Asuma tells Mel that he is 10,000 years too early to defeat him. Just then, Asuma gets a call from Val, who has been trying to reach him. Val tells him that she is outside the office, but he can't break through because the lock on the room is too powerful. Val mentions that she also detected a signal indicating a critical drop in his vitals. She wants to know if he is fine, and Asuma lets her know that she has nothing to worry about because the fight is already over. Val is impressed to hear this because she knows that whatever battle happens in the room is over the top. Suddenly, Val's smile fades when Asuma suddenly drops the phone, indicating that something is wrong. Back in the room, Mel starts to regenerate his body, using his mana, leaving a horrific expression on Asuma's face. Asuma is worried when he sees this, since something like this is not supposed to be possible unless Mel somehow has infinite mana. With a scary voice and dark mana emanating from his body, Mel tells Asuma that he has no intention to lose because he is a king who reigns at the pinnacle of humanity. Mel then starts cooking up some weird incantation, and when Asuma hears it, he remembers that it is the same instant death magic that killed him in the past. This is a forbidden spell that requires simultaneous chanting by 100 mages. Asuma is left wondering if Mel is trying to cast the spell all by himself. Before Asuma knows it, he gets engulfed in death flames, causing him to scream out in pain. However, he is able to break free again to unleash his own magic circle. Nonetheless, he knows he is on the losing side unless he is able to do something in 7 seconds. Just then, the fear of death creeps up his body because he realizes that he has nothing left to counter what is about to hit him. Asuma starts wondering if he should use reincarnation magic again, but he discards this idea because he doesn't think it is ideal for him to be running around. However, he is worried that there is nothing he can do, since there is no magic that can work on the king as he is at the moment. Although he has managed to surpass Mel's foresight once, this tells Asuma that Mel is not invincible, and if he can manage to strike him with a completely unknown magic, which is neither modern nor ancient magic that the king can't truly predict, Asuma believes that he should have a chance. However, the question is whether such magic exists. Suddenly it dawns on him that it does. He remembers that there is a new magic, and at this point he has no choice but to use the new magic. Even though the magic's analysis is not complete, Asuma believes that he has no choice at this point. Just as the countdown reaches 1, Asuma activates the magic, but he still gets engulfed in the death flames, and just as he is about to be taken in by death itself, present Asuma stops death, halting it. He tells death that he doesn't want the owner of the body to die yet, at least not like him. Surprisingly, death holds back, and present Asuma calls on ancient Asuma, reminding him of what they talked about in their dream. He reminds him that they are 2 hearts in 1 body, and if either of them is missing, they can no longer be considered Asuma. Present. Asuma admits that the words made him glad because, for the first time, he believes that he finally has a purpose, since he was just someone who was despised by everyone else. However, present Asuma tells ancient Asuma that he is about to break that promise by going with death, so he can be his substitute. With this sacrifice, present Asuma tells ancient Asuma that he has to win. Just then, he surrenders himself to be taken by the Grim Reaper, and ancient Asuma comes back to life with his eyes burning brightly. Ancient Asuma assures his other self that he is not going to let his sacrifice go to waste. With Asuma back to life, Mel is left wondering why he didn't die from his instant death magic. Frustrated by how stubborn Asuma is, Mel activates his foresight power again with the determination to end Asuma once and for all. However, Asuma lets him know that what he does is useless as he activates the new magic he wanted before the countdown hits 0. With something unheard of before, Asuma starts tapping into the fundamentals of everything which is fire, water, wind, earth, star, sun, darkness, light, demon, saint, evil, prayer, magic, chant, prophecy, worship, mathematics, astronomy, heliocentrism, Newtonian mechanics, quark, photon, Higgs boson, graviton, past to present, present to future, future to creation, creation to wisdom, and ancient to modern. Combining all of these fundamentals, Asuma is able to tap into something totally unheard of, thus filling him with so much magical energy that he easily grows back his severed arm. Asuma looks like a totally different person as he grows wings and starts floating in the air. Scared by what he is staring at, Mel frantically unleashes a ton of piercing magic at Asuma, but everything becomes trash as they approach Asuma. Sweat runs down Mel's face because he can't believe what just happened. However, he decides to try his luck one more time. Just as he is about to activate his magic, Asuma appears in front of him and pushes his hand into his chest, rupturing his insides, causing him to cough up blood. However, Mel believes he still has a chance because of his infinite mana pool. He is convinced that he can heal the wound, but suddenly he starts feeling something off. He looks to where he was wounded and sees a spiral forming from there. Before he knows it, he has totally transformed into what appears to be a DNA spiral. Asuma then tells him that it doesn't matter if his mana is infinite because the spiral is what governs infinite regression. Even if Mel tries to escape, his power will be deflected infinitely, which is the whole purpose of the spiral prison. Asuma lets him know that he can never return to the human side until he gives permission. Asuma then tells him that he has questions for him about the magic plague, and this is why he won't kill him in the meantime. Asuma tells Mel that he should be grateful for the divine mercy he's shown him. Once Mel is totally incarcerated, Asuma's wings disappear, and he picks up the phone to tell Val that he is fine. He assures Val that everything is over because he won. Just then, the door opens, and Asuma steps outside after a long, hard-fought battle.
Guys, that's the end of the video. If you liked this video, please leave a comment in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Like the video and share it too. Thank you for watching and see you next time again.